And always a pleasure to be joined here on GCR by our next guest. His team, the number one team in the country, the Big Ten regular season champs. Got a little hairy against Johns Hopkins on Saturday, but that's the nature of the rivalry. These things happen. It's a pleasure to welcome back in Maryland lacrosse coach John Tillman, who joins us on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn. It's great to see you. Great to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me, Glenn.
That's the way that Maryland Hopkins works, right? Like it's going to have to play out that way, isn't it? No matter where you guys are.
It's rivalry, throw the records out. There's a lot of pride involved, and I give the players on that team, the coaches, a lot of credit. It's been a very challenging year for everybody, but to kind of get a new staff, acclimated to a new school, get to know the kids, put in the schemes that you want that work with them, and have the players get to know the coaches and, get to know those schemes. Of course, it was going to be challenging early, but man, they've gotten better and better all year. So credit to them. I think Hopkins is getting better throughout the year. I think we've all seen that.
So you guys, obviously, like everybody else in the world, have been through a great deal to get to this point. As this was unfolding before you got the team together, did you have a sense of where your group was and whether they were fully ready for the challenges of what this season was going to be?
I'm not sure. We didn't know what to expect. I really like this group a lot. They're just a great group of young men, first and foremost. And that is always, when you're doing something and you really believe in the people and the mission, I think that really helps. Because you're doing it for all the right reasons. But not knowing what was going to be ahead of us, the fall was very challenging, I think, for all of us trying to understand what is COVID college, lacrosse going to look like. Our guys, I think like a lot of, college teams, we struggled with it in the fall. It was really difficult to kind of figure out how those kids were going to, get through the year. What could they do? What couldn't they do? How did they stay safe? And I think a lot of, programs, listen, we made some mistakes along the way. We learned, and the kids, we haven't had one positive COVID test all spring. And with 49 guys, we get tested almost 6 days a week. So that just shows so much sacrifice and discipline by this group. So I'm really proud of them for what they've been able to accomplish, because they've really had to do a lot more than a typical team.
So obviously it helps to have nice players, and you got quite a few of those. You got some really, really good ones on your roster. But what else generically has gone right to be sitting here, Big Ten champs, having won all the games that you've played as the spring has unfolded?
Well, we were a group last year that, and that was the challenge last year, was we really only had, 3 seniors that were playing for us. So we were a bit younger team last year. And then with guys getting an extra year, we almost returned the entire team. The one senior that played a lot, Russ Massey, he's most likely going to pursue maybe something in the military, like a Navy SEAL type, option. So very, very dedicated, hardworking guy, and was a captain for us. He was really the one guy that didn't return. And we were able to bring in a good freshman class. We had a couple transfers come in. So we felt like we had almost the entire team back, but just a year older. And I think that was really helpful for us, just because, all the guys that played last year were kind of used to playing with each other. Offensively, I think we were averaging about 16 goals a game last year. So we were playing pretty good offense. Defensively, at times we looked good, and at times we were inconsistent. And so that was an area where we felt like we needed to just get better consistently. And I think Coach Bernhardt has done a tremendous job with that group. And that group has just grown in so many different ways. And that has really helped us.
Obviously, you bring up Coach Bernhardt. There's another Bernhardt who's turning some heads and has been a pretty decent player. Between him and Logan, and I think about Logan's goal there at the end of the fourth quarter on Saturday, the week before, that first half goal from Jared, which is just one of the most ridiculous things that I've seen all season long. What these guys are capable of doing, even when well defended, even when a team has a strategy and is doing everything right, how much of a difference has it made to have guys that can still create in those situations?
It's huge for us. Those guys are pros, and I kind of say that jokingly, but they're pros. Like, they are very dedicated. They study their film. They take care of their bodies. You'll see both those guys walking around campus or walking, in and out of our facility with a big jug of water. They eat the right things. They work out very, very hard. Every practice, they're locked in. They do every drill like it's a game. So those guys they set such a good example for everybody else, that it's rubbed off on the rest of our team. And knowing that regardless of what the score is and what's going on, like, you just know what those guys are made of. You always feel like you got a chance to come back.
I mean, it's unbelievable, right? Like, you just watch him. I don't know what else to say other than, okay, sure. Like, yeah, that worked. That's exactly how you drew it up. I'm sure in the huddle was to go out and do something like that. Jared in particular, obviously, it's been kind of a crazy year, right? With the plans for football and that kind of falling apart and still wanting to do it. And there being, pressure to go pro, things along those lines. How has he handled all of that? Everything, all of the attention, all of the focus to still be able to perform at such an absurdly high level?
He's a very focused guy. He and Logan, we joke, they're both more introverts. They're roommates, and we joke that maybe weeks go by without them talking to each other. And I say that affectionately and jokingly, just because they're very comfortable with who they are. They are not, the chatty Cathy type. They are just quiet guys. I think they are perfect roommates for each other because they don't bother each other. They respect each other's space, and their kind of sense of self. But when you get on the field, those guys they are ultra competitive. And I think for Jared, coming back for just the spring has made it, he kind of looked at it like, I'm only here 4 months. I'm 100% locked in. I'm not going to be satisfied. Whatever happens each week, like, I want more. I'm going to push harder. And I'm going to challenge myself to be the very best I can be. And I thought he said something great after he set the goals record against Penn State. We were sitting in the locker room chatting after, and he's like, Coach, I just want these guys to experience what I was able to experience my freshman year in 2017. Like, I want those guys to experience that, so they have that memory and they have that moment as a group. And to me, like, what just a selfless approach to things, and what a great leader. And when that is your best player, you got a chance to do some good things.
Yeah, it helps. There's no doubt about that. Coach John Tillman with us here on GCR. Coach, we know you've got an unbelievably good team. Obviously, the flip side of it is you were only able to play conference games this year, and it leaves some people asking, hey, how good are they in comparison to the other teams in the country that they didn't face because they weren't able to play non-conference games? Do you have a sense, not knocking anything about your program and the things that you've done, do you have a sense of where you are outside of the Big Ten and as we move towards the NCAA tournament?
I mean, I have a sense, but I'll be honest, like, I've kind of looked at this year as, if we're only playing Big Ten games, like, I'm just going to focus on the Big Ten. So I haven't watched a lot of other games because I haven't needed to.
Yeah.
You only have so much time in the day. And during COVID, there's so many new additional things that you have to take on, whether it's testing or protocol or how you travel and things of that nature. So you don't have as much time and you have more responsibilities. So I don't have the ACC network, so I'm not able to get those games. So in a way, and I'm sure the guys are like, listen, you could set up your TV and
right.
do like Apple TV or something like that. The kids are saying if you wanted to, and I'm like, listen, those teams, I know some of those teams are terrific, and I know there's some other teams in different conferences that are having awesome years. But at this point, there's really no reason to focus on those guys. We just need to focus on ourselves and the 5 other teams. And you know what? Let's just be super dialed in on this. But I do think, we have a guy in Jared who's, I think, as good as anybody, because he's as good as any guy that I've coached. And we've coached some good ones here. So, and I think we have a selfless team that's continuing to improve. And plays really hard. So that gives you maybe a chance against some of these terrific teams that are out there. I think as the year goes on and, we get into May, we'll obviously start seeing some of those teams. And I know there are some terrific players out there.
I know we should probably spend a minute talking about your goalie too, just because not just when he's scoring against the 10-man ride and making Sports Center, which is really cool. Like, there's no doubt it's great for your program. But he's been outstanding throughout the course of the year. What can you tell us about Logan and the pressure that comes with being a Maryland goalie, right?
I think his demeanor is he's got some great instincts. He's got quick hands. He's got very good poise, but his demeanor is kind of like, I think what really makes him so successful. He just is like a guy that is so even keel. He never seems to get rattled by anything. He's easygoing, and just kind of like just a carefree guy, a very humble guy. But I think with the way the game goes, if goals get scored, the defenders are always ultra confident because like Logan just doesn't lose his cool. He's very like confident in there, but not arrogant. He'll always take the blame for a goal and not point the finger at anybody else. So even if the game, he gives up a couple, he's still the same guy. And that's, I think, very difficult for young guys. And, he's only played in 12 games. So he's still kind of a young goalie in that sense. What I'm excited is that he's really never had a true goalie coach. So we are able to do a lot with him, and he'll continue to get better and better. And he's got to be very good at a lot of things because he's not a guy that's going to take up a lot of goal. There are a lot of goalies that are 6'3", 6'4", and they take up a lot of net. They can play angles. He's just not that guy. So he's got to do a lot of things right to kind of make up that difference. But he does have tremendous instincts. He sees the ball well. He's quick. And, he's a guy that when we study, like, the clear and what the other team's doing, he'll know what the looks are. And even on that 10-man, he surveyed the field and, when a goalie's not in, we'll make a call. He was aware.
Do you have rules for that, Coach? Do you have like rules for when someone can shoot, what the circumstances are for shooting against the 10-man?
Yeah, because a lot of times in the 10-man, there's if they bump everybody up, a lot of times it's either an attackman that's open or the goal is open. And so if they fully commit to it, then the goal is an option. And we practice it just so that, we don't want to get into the game and have the first time somebody shoots a long shot to be in the game. So we have the kids practice that. We try to do some fun stuff with it. We'll have a contest and, one group will have to pick one guy and in the first one to score wins and stuff like that.
Cool.
So you kind of turn it into kind of a competitive fun thing. But, we scored, I think earlier in the year on a 10-man, and then even against like Brown in the 2016 NCAA tournament in the semifinals, Matt Dunn scored a goal from, probably the other box. So it is something that we feel like is important because if you don't look to do that, then everybody is covered. So the last thing you want to do is turn the ball over in your own end. And if you don't do a good job, that thing's coming, every single time you try to clear it.
Coach, before I let you go, can you, the teams that have made deep runs, is there a common thread that you see in your best teams that you can compare and say, hey, I feel something in this team that's similar? I know like the coach speak is always, hey, every team's different, every season's different, but is there something that you can feel about the best teams that you have that you might feel in dealing with your team this season?
Yeah, I think, the teams that are super focused, that are, kind of dialed in and trying to avoid distractions, that are making good decisions on and off the field, those teams, they avoid some of those self-inflicted wounds. And I think this group, for the most part, has done that. Like you're dealing with 49 young people. So inevitably, there's going to be, some mistakes made along the way. That's why we're here, right? To help young people learn about life. And sometimes through failure or mistakes or disappointment, they learn, but that's how they grow. And you find those teachable moments. And the season provides some of that. Sometimes it's, their choices off the field or academically that we're constantly on them about and pushing and challenging them. But this group seems laser focused. I think Jared, and again, you mentioned Logan, they're very dialed in, and they're guys that regardless of what they do the week before, they are not satisfied. So I think that is something that some of our best teams here, they've just been very determined, and they're whatever happened the week before, it's on to the next week, and they're not feeling too good about themselves. They're kind of not listening to the noise. And that's, I think, been really good for this group. And I think that hopefully will serve us well, next week. I think this week has been great. We're off this week.
Yeah.
We're able to just give the kids a mental break. We basically gave them Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off, and just, step back from lacrosse, catch your breath. It's beautiful outside today, go spend some time outside, barbecue or do something like that. And, focus on school, catch up there. And then we'll get back to work tomorrow. We got some things that we need to clean up. A lot of things that I thought Hopkins, did a good job on with us. We got to kind of correct those things and know we'll see them again. But also, making sure that for this last push, we want to be mentally, physically fresh and have the kids be excited. So that's really been the goal this week.
In action again next Thursday night up at Penn State, the Big Ten semifinals. That's on May 6th, ahead of Selection Sunday. Coach John Tillman, congratulations on a Big Ten regular season title. We can't wait to see what's next for your team. Really appreciate you taking the time for us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Glenn. Appreciate it.